What was TXU's attitude at that point in time?
Well, I mean, we had debates, we had public forums. They were adamantly for this plan. They thought it was, a great plan and helped, the economy of the state of Texas. But what they were really doing, I mean, there's an issue here about the reason they wanted to do this, because basically TXU's business plan, and I don't fault them for their business plan, but their basic business plan was to generate electricity at coal-fired prices and sell it at gas-fired prices. Texas is an island in terms of electricity. The ERCOT grid, which encompasses about 75% of the geographic state of Texas, 85% of the demand, is kind of an island. It's not really linked to any other parts of the country or parts of the grid. And TXU saw an opportunity for incredible profit by generating electricity in these new coal-fired plants at, let's say, 2.9 cents a kilowatt hour, and being able to sell it at 12 to 14 cents a kilowatt hour. That's an incredible, incredible profit, and much higher than in any other part of the country. So that's what they saw, and we're business people and we understand that. But at the same time, they were looking to push out some of the costs of generating that electricity through the thought of dirty air onto us. And if our city's air is dirty, then we reach in 2010 non-attainment, or not complying with the Federal Clean Air Act. And what that means is very serious, because then at that point we lose funding for some very important things, federal funding. We lose funding for transportation, and that means highways. All highway construction basically comes to a stop, and mass transit. So in an area that's Dallas-Fort Worth, for example, that has almost 6 million people, we basically, our growth is severely impeded and comes to a halt. That's bad for all business. The second thing that happens if we're in federal non-attainment is that existing businesses that emit restricted gases, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, mercury, particulate matter, are regulated. In other words, if let's say you're building apartment complexes, and you are told now that because building apartment complexes releases a lot of dust, and the dust gets in the air and contributes to particulate matter. You're told you can't do this anymore during the day. You have to do this at night. This increases your cost because you have to pay labor to work at night, and will ultimately lead to less development in the city. So these are examples of why we created this coalition. And the coalition is statewide. We have members in every major city in the state, and what's interesting about this coalition is that it crosses the political spectrum. There are people there who are, liberal Democrats, and there are people there who are, I would say, conservative Republicans. But they're all united on the issue that clean air is important to us, and our ability for our businesses to grow can be limited by the fact that our air is dirty. There is no inherent conflict between clean air and good business.
In terms of how TXU and Rick Perry would at some point attempt to frame the argument that kind of if you're a conservative, then you have to be for economic growth, and more, that means that we need more power and more electricity. Clearly you don't buy that argument.
Well, we are conservatives, and the word conservative means to conserve. So we need to use the resources that we have efficiently. There's no inherent conflict between good business and good environmental stewardship. In fact, just the opposite. Everybody wants a clean environment. Nobody, if you ask them, is against clean air. Okay? Everyone is for clean air. It's the costs that are involved in doing that. And given that we're up against the wall because of the Federal Clean Air Act, we're up against a clock because we have until 2010 to get our cities into attainment, that we have to do this. We have to do this. We don't have a choice. We cannot lose federal funding for transportation and for mass transit. Our city will stop growing, and economic growth and all the wealth and creation that you see in the city and other cities in Texas will just stop. So we have to do this, and there is no conflict between business and good environment, as well as things like attracting quality workers from around the country. Who wants to work in a polluted city? Who wants to bring their family to a polluted city? And in terms of just bottom line costs, who wants to pay more health insurance because you have to treat people for asthma and breathing related problems because of dirty air? It's just good business.